So I'm attempting to help out another shop here in town, and we're working on a 2012 Kia Sorento. It has a history of the battery going dead. It's had the alternator replaced. The battery warning light is currently on when the engine is running, and output voltage at the battery reads around 12 volts, so it's obviously not charging. I've checked continuity of the wire, output wire of the alternator. I've got 12 volts down at the back of the alternator and the heavy wire, and the 175 amp fuse is good. On top of that, there's about a 1 amp parasitic draw that I've traced to the module fuse in the IP fuse block, and it feeds the BCM and the nav radio and I think one other component. Have a look at the wiring diagram. So data in the power distribution module shows the battery voltage at 12 volts, 12.1. Battery warning light is on. We're going to see if there's any relearn or reset that has to be done after the alternator is replaced. So here's a list of the functional tests that are supported in this snap-on scan tool in the power distribution module, and nothing to do with battery replacement or alternator replacement and relearn. So I'm going to try an Autel scan tool. So here's the Autel scanner. Active test. Doesn't have anything to do with the a relearn of the charging system, and I can't find any test procedure to do that. So we're going to condemn the alternator, but I think I'm going to check the supporting wiring down to the alternator and make sure it's okay. So here's the schematic, OEM schematic of the charging system. Yeah, come on, scroll up. So it has an internal voltage regulator, but it is PCM controlled. There's a PCM there that controls the charging system. Indicator in the dash is an LED, and it's controlled by microprocessor logic and networked information received across the CAN bus. So it's over here. So there's the indicator light, there's the CAN bus circuit. So I'm going to read the procedure for replacing it, because it does show a battery sensor with a LIN bus wire running from the battery sensor to the PCM, but I don't see the battery sensor showing up anywhere. And maybe it's in the PCM this relearn procedure must be done. We'll have to take a look in there. Well, it's showing the charge system voltage at 11.65, 79% charge, state of charge. But I can't find any procedure in here to, under active tests, there's nothing to do with the charging system that I can see. Or under special functions, nothing in there as well. So I'm going to have a look at the troubleshooting procedure for replacing an alternator, see if it mentions anything in the OEM information. So this 15 amp module fuse in the IP fuse block, which feeds these two circuits coming out of pin 15, an IPE connector, is where the source of the drain was. What I've done is I've cut this red wire, and this is actually the circuit here, the connector, pin 15 of that connector, which is down here. So that's this red wire coming out of this connector here that I've cut. That feeds the memory power to the nav radio, and that has eliminated 90% of the parasitic draw on this thing. But it still has a charging system issue. So there's the parasitic load on this battery after a half an hour. It's dropped to 41 milliamps. This just makes sure it's zeroed. And it is zeroed. Put the amp clamp back over the power distribution feed wire. 39 milliamps. If I open the door, of course the interior lights are going to come on. And we're about 1.7 amps. And after a few seconds that'll drop to about 350 milliamps. Then it takes a half an hour at least before it drops down to 40 milliamps. So it's a waiting game now. Should see this drop any second as the interior lights go off. The interior lights are still on. There we go. So it drops down to about 380 milliamps, and then it takes about a half an hour to drop to 40. So there's definitely a problem with the nav radio. I've cut the wire coming out of the fuse panel to it that feeds it. It can be easily repaired if they decide to fix the nav radio. And this amp clamp just went to sleep. Good to go.